Before we start, just a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. Only 2% are subscribed. At 1,000 subscribers, I'll be posting a special video. His phone buzzed on the counter again, heart icon, hotel address, 8 p.m. I flipped it face up and the thread opened by itself. I'm Lena, 32, and my hand would not stop shaking. The last bubble said, "See you in 15, bring the card." The front door clicked and I kept the screen bright. He stepped in, shoes still on, eyes jumping to the phone. "No," he breathed, shoulders stiff, keys biting his palm. I watched the 3 dots pulse from her like a dare. Another buzz hit, same address, different room number. I turned the volume up and the hallway felt narrow. "Give it here," he reached and I pulled back hard. "Who is she?" My voice landed flat, not gentle. He looked past me to the sink and then back. "We can manage this," he whispered, trying to smile. "Breathe, we need to stay, think about everything." I opened the gallery and scrolled to their mirror shots. Same jacket, same grin, my card peeking from his wallet. He flinched, then straightened like a meeting had started. "It's done," he said, hands raised like I held a weapon. "Breaking us breaks the life around us, do you get that?" I hit record and set the phone between us, camera low. "Say it clean," I said, and my throat burned quick. He paced once, then planted himself against the island. "I slept with her," he muttered, fingers drumming in rhythm. "She doesn't matter, stability does, or we both sink." A message preview popped up, "Room paid, bring the wine." My stomach flipped, not from jealousy, from the logistics. "You used our card," I watched his jaw bite down. "It's points," he threw back, too fast to be careful. The room felt tilted and I liked the angle. "Call her," I said, sliding the phone across a crack. He blinked, then let out a short, practiced laugh. "That's theater," he said, rubbing his temple for effect. "You want a scene that never ends or control." He waited for me to fold and I didn't. I dialed anyway and hit speaker, airtight in my chest. 2 rings, then her voice, warm and certain, no shame. "Lobby in 5, she said, loud enough to coat everything. I ended the call and faced him without blinking. He checked the dead screen like it could wake up. "You will ruin me," he finally pushed out, breath clipped. "Work, family, the mortgage in review, all of it." He pointed at the fridge where the budget hung crooked. "We are 2 signatures from a lower rate, remember." My silence pressed him harder, and that part pleased me. I took my keys and slid them into my pocket slow. His eyes flicked to my bag, to the door, to my face. "You walk out and the story writes itself," he warned. "Affair, drama, failed marriage, no nuance, pure scandal." He still thought I cared about neat narratives more than truth. I opened the Notes app and typed 3 short demands. "Full disclosure today, no contact tonight, proof tomorrow." He read them twice, then pushed the phone back to me. "You want purity while the house burns," he murmured. "You can have purity or you can have a plan." My voice stayed steady because rage gave me rails. "Pick one," I said, tapping the first line with my nail. He stared at the list like it could blink and vanish. "That second one kills my project," he muttered, buying time. "Your project already killed something," I answered, and he knew which. He reached for his coat and stopped, half turn, half plea. "We stay and we manage the optics," he tried again. "I handle work, you handle home, we survive this." He placed both palms on the counter and lined in. "You blow it up and we never outrun the smoke." A fresh text slid across the screen, "You close, I'm at elevators." He closed his eyes, then opened them like he chose courage. "Delete the thread and I walk away clean," he said. "Keep it and we both drown in consequences." His bargain sat between us, thin and poisonous. I pressed my thumb to the power button and held. The phone went dark and his shoulders lifted an inch. Then I turned it back on and opened the thread again. "Now we both see what's real," I said, louder than planned. His mouth twitched and something mean sparked behind it. He stepped closer, voice low, wanting me to fold fast. "Last chance to be smart, Lena," he whispered by ritual. "We stay together, we control what people learn." A beat passed and I pictured a future I did not want. "What if I want them to learn everything?" I asked. I used his thumb to unlock the phone again, then I texted her. Change of plan, meet upstairs now. I sent the room number. He grabbed for it and missed as I stepped back fast. Move and I forward this thread to HR, I said, pulse hard. He froze long enough for me to choose shoes and leave. He followed to the elevator, face tight, voice barely above air. Your escalating came out clipped, almost careful, mask slipping. Then de-escalate, I answered, pressing the button and holding the door. Call the hotline with me tonight or watch me prove it. The door slid shut on his stare and I let that land. I drove straight to the hotel and texted from his phone. Bring your key, I added a heart because she would expect it. My hands steadied when the typing bubbles started to dance. On my way, that was enough evidence for my next move. The front desk clocked me, but I kept walking toward the lifts. In the hallway, I propped the door with my shoe and waited. Steps approached, quick and light, confidence in every beat. She turned the corner holding a tote and scanning for him. Wrong floor, I said, calm and direct, and she stopped cold. Recognition hit, then calculation. She checked the number again. Give me the pass, I held out my palm without shaking. She kept her hand close and glanced over my shoulder once. He's downstairs, I added, and he owes both of us clarity. Her chin lifted a notch, pride fighting with caution and schedule. She slid the card across anyway, fingers barely touching mine. I waved the key over the reader and let the green blink. Inside, I said, stepping back to direct her forward. She crossed the threshold, spine straight, mouth a thin line. I set his phone on the table and hit record again. Only facts, no acting, no one raises voices. How long, I asked, giving her the same test I gave him. She studied me like a rival interviewer and then nodded once. Since the conference, she started and I raised a finger. No timelines, just present tense actions and commitments, I cut in. Are you contacting him tonight or not? Her lips pressed, he asked me to stay available. Not tonight, I said, and if you reach out anyway, I report. She weighed the threat the way professionals weigh budgets. That affects my team, she answered, calm but clearly irritated. That affects my health, I countered and let the words hang. The door clicked behind us, he walked in and stopped dead. Her shoulders squared like she had walked into a glass interview. You ruined the plan, he hissed, and she looked between us. No, I said, I just stopped being your cover. I pointed at the phone, red light blinking like a metronome. You two will document everything right now, I laid out, deliberate. Message your boss and request reassignment for 2 weeks. Draft the email here so no one scrubs it later. He rubbed his jaw, buying time the way gamblers buy chips. Or I forward the proof to your compliance officer tonight. She exhaled and pulled out her phone without more pushback. I can request temporary coverage, she offered, fingers moving briskly. He tried to block her screen with his shoulder like a shield. I moved closer until he had to choose distance or obstruction. Pick distance, I said, and he took a slow step back. I dictated the subject line and watched her type each line. Temporary reassignment due to conflict of interest, effective immediately. Her eyes flicked up to gauge my endgame and my patience. My endgame is daylight, I said, not whispering, not shaky. She hit send and showed me the confirmation with a tiny nod. Now call the hotline, I told him, holding out his phone again. He stared at the number like it burned through the glass. Confidential intake now or public fallout in the morning, I pressed. He dialed and the automated voice answered with polite instructions. I put it on speaker and let the recording capture the call. He verified his identity and stated the relationship in short phrases. He avoided names and I corrected that with a gentle tap. She folded her arms and stared at the floor like it might shift. The operator read a case number and asked about workplace impact. I repeated the number out loud so it stayed in the file. When the call ended, he sagged against the door like gravity doubled. Next, I said, and their eyes flashed in the same direction. Health screening, I added, and I opened the calendar app. You both book tests by noon tomorrow and send confirmations. No one argued because there was nowhere else to go. She spoke first, voice quiet but clear and almost steady. I'll schedule in the morning and send the proof. Her gaze found mine and held without flinching or apology. "I did not sign up to be anyone's shield," she added. I could respect that sentence and still enforce the boundary. He reached for the phone again and I let him have it. He scrolled through contacts, then stopped at something that froze me. A reminder banner glowed at the top with 2 appointments tomorrow. Not dinner, not a meeting, a clinic with a specialist. I filed the detail for later and kept my face unreadable. "Hotel cost hits our account tonight," I said, redirecting hard. "You will reimburse from your personal funds before midnight." He started to posture and I lifted the camera a fraction. The performance drained out of him like air from a tire. "Transfer now." I tapped the banking app and watched him move. Money landed and a new line appeared on the activity screen. That gave me the chargeback leverage I needed for later steps. She logged her calendar change and forwarded an internal copy to me. I saved everything to my drive and one external email. Insurance against edits later and against creative memory tomorrow. I turned to her one last time and kept my tone stern. "You will not contact him tonight and you will not respond. If he writes, ignore it and send me screenshots in the morning." Her nod came slow, but it came, and that was enough. I escorted her to the hall and let the door shut. He remained inside with his hands on the back of a chair. "You can still keep this contained if you stop here," he tried. I looked at the case number on the Notes app and knew better. "Containment helped you cheat," I said, and his eyes flickered. "Transparency helps me live, and I'm not negotiating that." He moved a step closer, like proximity could sway me now. "Stay married for the paperwork," he murmured, soft and transactional. "You get security, I get quiet, everyone wins." I picked up the phone and pressed play on the recording. His pitch echoed back at him until he looked away. "Tomorrow morning we meet the therapist," I added, controlled and clear. "You disclose the call, the reassignment, and the tests. Then we set separate accounts and passwords today." His jaw tightened because losing access scared him more than exposure. "Refusal means I forward everything before lunch, no warnings." He opened his mouth and closed it when I raised a hand. Silence worked better on him than any new threat. He nodded once, curt and grudging, but it counted. I opened the door and left him with the case number. The elevator chimed and I knew this was only midpoint, not mercy. I pushed the consent form across and clicked the pen open. "Sign that you'll answer directly." My voice left no exit. He scanned the line for loopholes and found none. The therapist waited with a legal pad and a steady gaze. I held his eyes until the pen hit paper. "Goal in 1 sentence," the therapist prompted without ceremony. He leaned back like this was a performance with grading. "Minimize damage to our lives," he tried, smooth and hollow. I set my phone down with the audio file queued. "Correction, we pursue truth first, outcomes second," agreed. He hesitated and nodded once, jaw tight and careful. "Say whether you're romantic with anyone else right now." "No," he started, and I tapped the screen once. Her voice from last night filled the quiet like a receipt. He flinched hard, then looked at the therapist for rescue. "No debates," the therapist cut in with a raised palm. "You can tell the truth or state refusal, your choice." He swallowed and stared at the carpet like it could help. "I ended contact after the hotel," he managed through gritted teeth. "We can keep it contained if she stops pushing." I ignored the blame and slid over a printed email. "Temporary reassignment approved, manager looped, compliance notified." The therapist skimmed and turned back to him fast. "You understand you're in an integrity process now, correct?" He nodded because denial had nowhere left to stand. The smartwatch on his wrist buzzed and lit up. I didn't look away, and neither did the therapist. He silenced it, but my screen mirrored the alert. "Clinic follow-up confirmed for 10:30 tomorrow, provider name included." My stomach tightened, not from shock, from validation and timing. "What procedure needs a follow-up?" I asked with no tremor. He pressed 2 fingers to his temple like that could stall. "Routine," he muttered, eyes sliding to the door for escape. "Then release the portal access right now in front of us." I turned my phone so the login page faced him. He unlocked his own account and paused at two-factor. The code arrived and he tried to angle the device away. I shifted closer until he had to share the screen. The dashboard opened and the appointment notes were obvious. Family planning consult, medication provided, follow-up required, no complications. The therapist underlined a blank line and waited in silence. This matters for her health and for yours, she said. You both book full panels today and share the results. No one argued because denial would look reckless on paper. He nodded again, but the muscle in his cheek fired. I want a written timeline limited to the last 2 weeks, I added. Dates, locations, expenses, and any work overlaps. That exposes my team, he snapped, then lowered his tone. It exposes your choices, I answered, and the therapist wrote. Send me the document by 4 or I submit the file. He tried to pivot to couples work and I refused it. This is a safety meeting, not a reconciliation ritual. The therapist marked 2 boxes and handed us a sheet. In-home separation rules, sleeping apart, separate devices, shared calendar for logistics. Agree now or move out today, choose. He stared at the line about passwords like it betrayed him. I need access for bills, he argued, palms open and pleading. You'll receive invoices by email like any grown adult. I pulled a small list and set it beside the form. New logins, new codes, new bank profile, no shared wallets. We left the office with a clock running in my head. In the car, he tried the soft voice that always blurred edges. Let it cool for a week, his hands floated midair. Cooling covers nothing, I answered, and my chest stayed steady. He looked out the window and plotted, I could feel it. At the lab, I checked us in and watched his posture harden. He rolled his sleeve and pretended this was loyalty in action. I rolled mine and signed the release so results came to me. The nurse asked 2 questions and typed a reference code. His eyes darted when she mentioned contact notifications and secure messages. We walked out and my phone pinged with insurance activity. A claim had hit for an outside pharmacy under his profile. Same provider as the morning alert, same case reference. I took a screenshot and added it to my folder. He noticed and quickened his pace like speed could erase data. Back home, I set a suitcase by the spare room door. Tonight you sleep here and you respect the schedule. He looked past me toward our bedroom and then back. You're punishing, he accused, voice low and almost shaking. I'm protecting my body and my mind, and you know why. I opened the laptop and changed the banking credentials. 2-step pinged his device and he clenched the phone. Hand it over for the code, I ordered, palm steady. He stared at the floor, then placed it on my open hand. The number arrived and the account locked under my control. An email landed from HR before I closed the tab. They requested a brief statement from me for their record. Attach any material that supports the reassignment and hotline ticket. I typed 3 clear paragraphs and attached the audio and screenshots. I hovered before sending and then pressed the button hard. He stepped into the doorway and leaned against the frame. You'll ruin our credit and your reputation, he warned softly. You think people reward honesty, they don't, they feast. I met his eyes and let the quiet do the work. You already spent our reputation, I'm just itemizing the charges. My phone lit again with a new subject line. Legal consult confirmed for tomorrow noon, referral from the therapist. I hadn't asked for that, but the timing was perfect. He noticed the email header and laughed once without humor. You planning a war now, he asked, eyebrows raised like a dare. I'm planning a future that doesn't depend on your spin. He looked at the guest bed and finally understood the map. This is temporary, he tried, voice dropping into bargaining mode. That depends on tomorrow's transparency and the clinic results. He shut the door without answering, and I locked my screen. I sat at the table and rehearsed the next moves. Inventory of shared bills, freeze on discretionary spending, keys in a bowl. Notify a friend for a check-in call tonight at 9. Not for comfort, for witness, for structure. I pressed send and watched the 3 dots bloom, then stop. The banking app pinged at 6, outgoing transfer labeled household reimbursement. I opened the ledger and traced it to a prepaid card online. He had moved money minutes before the daily limit reset. I screenshotted everything and froze the card with 2 taps. His door opened behind me, and he knew I caught it. "Emergency funds," he muttered, shoulders hunched like that helped. "For who?" I asked, holding the screen. "And up between us." He glanced at the suitcase near the bed, and then me. "You're not leaving with my money and my silence." He reached for the handle, and I placed my foot on it. Compliance scheduled a video call, and the invite landed. "Join," I told him, already connecting with my camera on. He hovered off-screen and tried to whisper a script. I raised a finger and faced the monitor without blinking. "Documenting financial movements tied to policy violations, starting now." The investigator appeared crisp and direct, no warm greetings. I forwarded the audio file and yesterday's reassignment email. "Any retaliation observed?" she asked, pen ready and precise. "Yes," I answered and slid the transfer screenshot into the chat. He watched the upload bar like it dragged him under. "Are you attempting to hide assets?" she asked without blinking. He forced a flat smile and talked in careful phrases. "Household management," he tried, then stumbled over the prepaid detail. The pause lasted one heavy beat, and she wrote fast. "You may be contacted again by legal. Expect a calendar hold." The call ended and my phone buzzed with a new voice memo. Her voice not shaky, not smug, just very focused. "HR reached out. I will cooperate. I also need assurance." I saved it, then typed a reply with 4 clear lines. "Cooperate fully, no contact with him, send receipts, no exceptions." At 9 sharp, I dialed the clinic and requested a release. He rolled his eyes but signed when I pointed to the deadline. I faxed the form and confirmed reception with the front desk. The portal refreshed with his medication note and dosage instructions. I added a reminder for follow-up verification and locked the screen. The attorney called on time and cut straight to structure. "Draft a separation agreement today and carve out finances. Keep housing stable until decisions are made," she advised coolly. "Do not commingle funds and require disclosures in writing." I took notes and looked at him, counting outcomes like chips. "Sign now and the house stays calm for 30 days." I slid the template across the table and pushed a pen. He stared at the clause requiring full financial transparency. "This traps me," he muttered, eyes flicking toward the door. "It protects me," I answered and set the recorder down. The doorbell rang and a padded envelope hit the mat. He moved to grab it and I stepped in front. Return address showed a jewelry store with a repair ticket. Inside sat a receipt for a resized ring and engraving. The note read, "Picked up Thursday, charge to joint account ends here." "What inscription?" I asked, already dialing the store number. The clerk verified his pickup with the same last 4 digits. She read 5 letters and a date that matched the conference. I wrote both down with a tight hand and steady breath. He stared at the floor like it might swallow the evidence. "You planned a future while I paid for groceries." He lifted his head and fumbled for a softer tone. "It was a mistake," he offered, voice rough around the edges. "Then draft an apology email to your family acknowledging harm. Blind copy me and keep it devoid of excuses." My lab results arrived with a clean preliminary panel. Relief came fast, then anger followed, harder and colder. His portal still showed pending documentation from the clinic. "Upload everything before noon or I notify your boss again." He glanced at the clock and pretended confusion, then sat. A friend's call came exactly at 9 like we had planned. I answered on speaker and stated the bullet points clearly. Transfer attempt, compliance interview, jewelry receipt, medical release. "I'm safe and I have a plan," I concluded, voice level. He watched the witness exist and knew the walls were real. I opened a shared spreadsheet and listed our monthly obligations. "These will be split today and paid from separate accounts." He tried to argue about timing and I raised my palm. "You can contest in writing later," I said without blinking. "Right now we prevent more damage, not debate old choices." A new email arrived from his manager with 2 lines. "Expect an internal review this week. Please preserve all materials." I forwarded it to myself and archived a copy elsewhere. He clocked the move and pinched the bridge of his nose. "The snowball is moving," he murmured, voice thin and rattled. "Then stop pushing it downhill and sign," I answered dry. He uncapped the pen and paused at the asset clause. "Two vehicles split by usage," he read, face tight with worry. "Fine," he added and scribbled initials with a stiff wrist. The signature landed on the last page like a stamp. I set his pillow and a blanket in the spare room. He appeared in the doorway, hands empty and face closed. "Don't turn this into a circus," he tried with quiet urgency. "You already sold tickets," I said, not raising my voice. "Tonight you rest, tomorrow you face the audience you chose." Well, my phone glowed with a private number and a short message. "Stop dragging him through mud or I tell your secrets." No signature, no context, just a dare thrown across my day. I saved the text and forwarded it to the investigator. Then I looked at him and he finally looked scared. I called the number that threatened me and hit speaker. A click, then breath, then silence long enough to itch. "Identify yourself," I said, recording on my second phone. The line cut and a new text landed instantly, "Watch yourself." I stared at it until my pulse settled into purpose. He stepped from the spare room and watched my thumbs move. "You're escalating again," his hands lifted like he could calm waves. "Your ghost forgot caller ID," I answered and held up the log. His eyes flicked to his wrist as a buzz lit up. Same unknown number flashed there and he covered the screen. I forwarded the messages to the investigator and my lawyer. "File a harassment report tonight," the attorney replied within minutes. I opened the portal, entered the details, and attached recordings. He hovered in the doorway and tried a soft voice again. "Please stop broadcasting," he whispered, and I kept typing without pause. The clinic portal refreshed while I was still uploading files. A partner notification banner appeared with a timestamp and initials. A pharmacy pickup showed a different address for delivery confirmation. Short-term rental, unit number, code sent to his email. I took screenshots, then grabbed my keys because enough was enough. I drove to the rental and parked with my friend on call. The keypad accepted the code and the deadbolt clicked fast. Inside was quiet, but the router flashed like someone just left. On the counter, a printed forwarding confirmation with our surname. I photographed the page and sent it to my attorney. Footsteps approached outside, and I turned the lock again. She arrived with a small tote and stopped when she saw me. "We're done," she said, voice steady, hand tight on the strap. "I'm here for a personal item and to end any confusion." She held out a manila envelope like a truce with terms. I opened it with my thumbnail and scanned the pages quickly. Mutual non-disclosure draft, payment amount, deadline, signature lines prepared. "Did he offer this?" I asked, keeping my tone controlled. She nodded once and glanced at the camera light on my phone. "He wanted silence attached to a transfer," she said, then waited. "I won't sign," I said, and I recorded my refusal. She placed a thumb drive on the table and slid it over. "Work texts, calendar invites, the night he asked me to lie." She looked at the doorway like she expected him to appear. "I also booked my test and sent proof to HR." I copied the files to my drive and checked a random sample. Affectionate messages, logistics, a screenshot of the jewelry invoice. She exhaled and adjusted the strap, not looking for sympathy. "The clinic note is real," she added, face tight with resolve. "No more contact from me after this drop." The door opened behind her and he froze at the threshold. His gaze hit the envelope, then the flash drive, then me. "You're poisoning the well," his voice cracked, volume low and clipped. "You tried to buy secrecy," I answered, keeping my feet planted. "This is transparency, and it happens with or without you." He stepped in, palms out, trying to divide us with posture. "She misunderstands the agreement," he started, and both of us laughed. I raised my phone and tilted the microphone toward him. "Repeat your offer with the number again," I said evenly. He stared at the floor and refused, which was its own confession. She backed toward the door and paused for one last line. "I gave HR everything," she said, chin high, voice flat. "If he messages me again, I report it and block it." She left and the latch clicked with a finality I felt. He watched the door like his ally had vanished mid-game. My phone buzzed with a calendar invite from his manager. Joint meeting tomorrow morning, subject line neutral and short. I accepted and forwarded the invite to my counsel immediately. He rubbed his face, then tried another angle with forced calm. Stay married for stability, we can rebuild quietly, he murmured. Sign the addendum now, I placed the tablet on the counter. A clause barred third-party threats and burner harassment. Another required monthly statements from every account in his name. He balked at the burner language and glanced toward the hall. That unknown number mirrors your watch, I said, and waited. He lowered his arm and finally stopped pretending about the buzz. Fine, he muttered, and the signature field filled under his finger. I saved the file to 3 locations and sent copies out. The new number texted again within 30 seconds, last warning. I lifted his wrist, tapped mute, and forwarded that too. At home, my inbox lit with the legal confirmation message. Protect. Tian clause accepted, temporary boundaries enforceable, contact routed through counsel. He read over my shoulder and swallowed whatever was left. Tell your parents tonight, I said, opening the family thread. You acknowledge the breach and the agreement in plain language. The video connected and faces filled the tiny screen. He spoke first, voice thin, hands gripping the back of a chair. I violated our vows and I'm under review at work. I kept my expression neutral and added 2 precise sentences. We are separated in place, all communication is documented, no exceptions. A relative jumped in with a rehearsed defense that ignored the facts. He's overwhelmed, couples need privacy, don't humiliate the family. I ignored the guilt and dropped one verifiable detail. Ring engraving documented with dates and an invoice, I said. Silence spread until someone cleared a throat and ended the call. After the call, I opened a new chat with my friend. Plan B tonight, I typed, and the response came fast. She offered her guest room and a code for the door. I packed a folder with IDs and signed agreements without fuss. He watched from the hallway and chose not to block the path. On the way out, his phone vibrated on the table again. Same unknown number sent a single word, traitor. I took a photo of the notification before it faded. Your burner is sloppy, I said, and the color left his face. We meet your manager tomorrow, and I won't be quiet. I walked into the conference room and set my folder down. His manager waited with legal on mute and a recorder blinking. He straightened his tie twice and tried a neutral smile. I slid the flash drive across the table without small talk. Timeline proof and the burner, I said, and hit play. The unknown number threats played first and the room cooled. His gaze dropped to his hands and stayed there. Legal cleared a throat and asked 3 tight questions. Any retaliation after reassignment, any non-disclosure offers, any asset movement. Yes to all, I answered, and passed copies prepared last night. He tried to regain rhythm with corporate phrases and softened tone. Personal matter isolated, under control, the script tripped on facts. The manager looked at me instead of him for context. Partner notifications and a rental used for mail forwarding. Silence hit for half a breath, then typing filled the gap. We need devices for forensic review by end of day. The manager's hand stayed steady while he delivered the sentence. Place him on leave pending outcome, legal added without ceremony. He blinked like a camera flash had gone off in his skull. Badge and laptop now, the manager said and pushed a tray closer. He reached for the laptop and then paused at the edge. His eyes raised to mine with a play baked into them. Say we are working through it, he tried, voice almost gentle. I met the manager's stare and kept my head still. We are separated and documenting, there is nothing else. Security walked in quietly and waited by the door. He placed the laptop down and set the badge on top. His shoulders slumped just enough to tell the truth. The manager thanked me for clarity while avoiding any sympathy. We will contact you only through counsel, legal added, brisk and final. Outside the building, my phone buzzed with the clinic message. My test returned negative and his follow-up was flagged overdue. I forwarded the notice to the investigator and my attorney. Then I texted him a short line that needed no reply. Complete your medical obligations today, or I escalate to compliance again. At the courthouse, I filed for a protection order against harassment. The clerk reviewed the burner texts and stamped the request. The judge signed a temporary order before I sat back down. I exhaled once, quick and thin, then took pictures for my file. Service would happen by evening, and I would be notified immediately. I drove to the notary with the separation draft open. He arrived late and walked in without his usual swagger. "Take the house with me on the deed," he started. I raised a finger and tapped the clause we added yesterday. "I keep occupancy and you pay your share until resolution." He rolled a pen between his fingers like it might make time. "Marriage is practical," he murmured, eyes searching for a gap. "You'll be sad and broke and people will talk." I signed my section with a firm hand and no drama. "Grief is cheaper than pretending," I said and pushed it back. He read the asset disclosure list and flinched at 3 entries. Short-term rental, prepaid card, jewelry purchase with engraving. His signature scribbled across each line and then stalled. "Give me a path back," he whispered, barely above air. "You have a path forward," I said and slid the stamp over. We finished and the notary sealed the packet and logged the time. My lawyer's email landed as I stepped out onto the sidewalk. "Filing accepted, temporary support scheduled, expect a hearing Friday." I started a message to my friend and stopped mid-typing. A private number flashed again, but the tone felt different. "Come outside now," the text read, and then a photo arrived. My license front and back on a kitchen counter I did not recognize. I zoomed in and saw the same short-term rental router blinking. I forwarded the image to the investigator with one tight line. "Someone entered the unit. I will meet police there." At the rental door, the keypad blinked red at the code. The lock had been changed and the deadbolt creaked. I called the dispatcher and requested an officer for a break-in. While I waited, a new message popped up with a taunt. "Delete the files or your ID goes missing." I saved that too. A patrol car pulled up and I gave a concise rundown. Leaseholder, proof of mail forwarding, active case with HR and legal. We entered with the property manager and a spare key. The counter showed the photo set up, staged like a trap. Camera pointed at the door, envelope ready for dramatic effect. I clicked the camera and scrolled the memory quickly. 4 recent clips, 1 entry using the new code. His watch flashed in the reflection as he adjusted the angle. He stepped out of frame and lifted my license to the lens. I stopped the playback and let the officer take the card. The officer logged evidence and asked if I felt unsafe. "I feel prepared," I answered, which was also true. We filed a report and linked it to my court request. The property manager sent access logs to my attorney within minutes. I locked the door and walked away without looking back. At home, the temporary order arrived with service confirmation. He had been handed the papers in the building lobby. My phone rang and my friend's voice landed like an anchor. "Are you okay?" she asked, and I counted the facts. "Protected, documented, moving," I said in my breathing. "Leave and..." He texted from the approved thread with a new tactic. "Let's meet privately, no lawyers, no recordings." I typed a 5-word answer and left 0 room for angles. "All communication stays on record," then I muted the thread. The typing bubble appeared and disappeared, then nothing. I turned to a different task that could not wait. Joint account closures with a new bank representative on video. I verified my identity and listed the court order provisions. They locked access from his profile and mirrored statements to counsel. I watched the final confirmation appear and then took a screenshot. My inbox pinged with an invitation from the therapist again. "Individual session to support safety plan," the subject read. I joined and described the day without dressing it up. She listened, then handed me a short exercise for tonight. Name the goals aloud, then choose one immediate step. "Goal 1, I said and felt my voice steady. Clarity in every exchange, no private negotiations, no hidden channels. Goal 2, my health prioritized over optics and image. Goal 3, exit the marriage with simple paperwork and receipts. She nodded once and asked for the step I would take. I opened a new message to my employer and kept it line. I am safe, I have capacity. Please route any inquiries to council. I attached nothing and asked for no accommodations or favors. This part mattered because I wanted my independence unbent. I hit send and the message left like a clean cut. The next call was the investigator with a calm update. Device surrender complete. Internal review underway. Do not engage directly. Copy, I said, then asked one firm question. Who owns the short-term rental lease as of today? Company Housing for Travel. He is not listed. That narrowed the circle. I texted her again with a request for the entry footage. She responded with a link to a secure upload within minutes. I forwarded it to the officer and my attorney without comment. Pieces were aligning and the pattern was no longer shaky. A formal charge felt close enough to taste, but I waited. He tried one more angle before the evening settled in. A photo of our wedding day with a single line. Remember who we are. He always reached for nostalgia in crisis. I stared at it until the sting ran out of fuel. Then I archived it and blocked media from auto-downloading again. I packed a suitcase with only what mattered for a week. Documents, keys, new cards, a single framed form notarized today. My friend opened her door and hugged me without questions. She pointed to the guest room and left me to breathe. For the first time in days, silence did not feel like a trap. I set alarms for court and the meeting with legal tomorrow. Then I wrote a message for myself and saved it twice. Do not trade truth for comfort. I marked it as priority. I placed the phone face down and let my shoulders drop. My jaw unclenched and a different kind of tired finally arrived. Before sleep, I remembered one last unfinished thread. The engraving on that ring had matched a date and 5 letters. I emailed the store and requested the surveillance from pickup day. The manager replied right away with a transfer in progress. I thanked them and turned the screen off without fear. Morning brought an alert that changed the tempo again. HR expanded the review to his department and leadership tier. Witnesses would be interviewed and devices mirrored for patterns. I took a breath and felt the horizon move closer. Not victory, just the end of denial pretending to be order. He messaged through counsel with a final proposal for closure. No spousal support if I waived my complaint and signed now. I replied with 3 sentences and attached the order again. Proceed with the hearing, maintain protections, keep all records intact. His attorney acknowledged receipt and offered a time to finalize. At the courthouse, we sat 6 feet apart with masks of civility. The judge reviewed the petition and the evidence packet. The burner messages did the work I hoped they would. He tried to explain and stumbled on the access logs. The order extended and the penalties outlined were crystal clear. Outside the courtroom, his lawyer approached with a cleaner offer. Immediate interim support, debt division favorable to me. He keeps his retirement, I keep the house in my name. I checked each term, then looked him in the eyes once. This ends the cycle, I said, and signed the line. The pen left the page and I felt something unhook. Not relief, not triumph, something quieter and firmer than both. He reached to speak and then chose not to. He gave a slow nod that looked like surrender without grace. We turned away in opposite directions and did not look back. I walked out to the street and let the air hit. My phone buzzed with the last necessary update of the day. Internal review concluded. He is terminated for cause. I read it twice and saved a copy to my folder. Then I put the phone away and crossed at the light. The door at my friend's place opened before I knocked. I set the suitcase down and handed her the signed packet. She scanned the first page and squeezed my shoulder hard. You did it without losing yourself, she said, eyes steady. I finally let the tears come, not as collapse but release. That night I slept for 4 hours without checking a single app. When I woke, the world hadn't ended like he promised. I brewed coffee and read the judge's order again line by line. Every sentence held a boundary that I had built under pressure. I closed the file and felt ready for whatever came next.